Do you know why you can't kill a plowing yellow ox? When I was a kid, my grandpa was a village butcher, slaughtering cattle and sheep for half his life. One day, Sun Liang brought over a yellow ox and asked my grandpa to help butcher it. When my grandpa found out that the animal to be killed was a plowing yellow ox, he stepped forward to talk him out of it.
Take it back and take good care of it. This yellow ox has been working hard in the fields every single day without complaint. It's already gained human understanding. You can't kill it.
As soon as my grandpa finished speaking, Sun Liang's face turned ugly.
Uncle, it's easy for you to say. This yellow ox is old and crippled, and it can't even plow the fields anymore. What's the point of keeping it?
As Sun Liang said this, he even kicked the yellow ox. The old yellow ox let out a low, mournful cry. Seeing that grandpa stayed silent, Sun Liang let out a cold snort.
If you won't help me kill it, I'll take it back and do it myself.
Then, Sun Liang snorted again and dragged the old yellow ox toward the courtyard gate. But the crippled old yellow ox refused to move, pulling back with all its might. After dragging Sun Liang to the ground, the old yellow ox ran straight toward Grandpa. It knelt in front of Grandpa, tears streaming from its eyes. At this moment, Sun Liang scrambled up from the ground, cursing under his breath. He viciously kicked the ox in the stomach a few more times, swearing he would kill it right then and there. Seeing this, my grandpa frowned. The look in the old yellow ox's eyes was just too pitiful, so he stepped forward and pulled Sun Liang away.
Enough. Stop hitting it. I'll buy this old yellow ox.
Sun Liang froze for a few seconds, then gave a wicked smile.
Uncle, you're never this soft-hearted when you're slaughtering pigs and sheep. Why suddenly buy this useless old yellow ox? Are you trying to build up some good karma for yourself?
My grandpa couldn't be bothered to waste breath on him.
Just tell me, how much?
Sun Liang smirked and held up 5 fingers.
Are you trying to rob me, kid?
Grandpa sighed, then went into the house, brought out the money, and handed it to Sun Liang. After getting the cash, he left without even looking back. Once Sun Liang was gone, Grandpa finally untied the rope around the yellow ox. Once freed, the old yellow ox kept nodding at Grandpa, as if thanking him. Grandpa opened the old goat pen and let the old yellow ox inside. After buying the old yellow ox, Grandpa didn't crack a single smile. I knew he was worried about my grandma. He hadn't even discussed such a big purchase with her. Grandpa looked at me and asked,
Dongfu, do you think your grandma will be mad when she finds out I bought an ox?
I nodded. Grandma wouldn't just be mad. She would definitely give Grandpa a good scolding. Grandpa smiled and said,
I already bought it. We'll talk about it when she gets back.
By nightfall, Grandma came back from town. She had bought some new fabric, which was meant for my youngest uncle's upcoming wedding. Seeing the old yellow ox in the sheep pen, she asked with a surprised look in her eyes,
Why is Liangzi's old yellow ox at our place?
Grandpa lit his pipe and replied,
I bought it.
Grandma froze for a few seconds, then her voice went up a notch.
You bought a crippled ox. What were you thinking? How much did it cost?
Grandpa frowned and explained in a low voice,
You can't just kill a Yangzi insisted on slaughtering it, so I bought it.
Grandma lost her patience. She marched straight into the house to check how much money we had left. Just a few minutes later, she yelled out,
Chen Lao-san, are you out of your mind? Daming is getting married soon, and you spent our money on a crippled ox. What were you thinking? Go return it right now.
After saying that, Grandma stormed toward the sheep pen. The old yellow ox was so startled that it stood up. Grandma grabbed the rope tied to the yellow ox and tried to drag it out. The old yellow ox let out a cry, stomping its hooves on the ground as it moved. Seeing this, Grandpa hurried over to stop her, and the two started arguing in the yard over the old yellow ox. The old yellow ox kept shaking its head vigorously. After breaking free, it limped back into the sheep pen and pawed at the dirt, as if it had found something. Seeing this, I curiously went over and found that there was actually gold right where the old yellow ox had stepped. Immediately, I shouted to Grandpa and Grandma, Grandpa, Grandma, come look, there's gold here. As soon as I said that, Grandpa and Grandma rushed into the sheep pen. Grandpa bent down, picked up the gold from the ground, and said with a smile,
This is a blessing for our family.
Grandma's eyes widened. She looked around, and only after making sure no one was there did she whisper,
Gold inside.
Grandma was grinning from ear to ear.
Old man, with this gold, our family is going to live a good life.
Grandpa also had a smile on his face.
That's right.
Then Grandpa turned to me and said,
Can't tell anyone about the gold we found.
I nodded. Grandma took some red paper from the cabinet and wrapped the gold pieces one by one. Once it was all wrapped up, she told me to go to the storehouse and boil a pot of water. I nodded and ran to the storehouse, sitting there until Grandma called me back. Every time she hid money, she would send me away. After a while, when I heard Grandma call for me, I ran back to the east room and climbed onto the earthen bed to sleep. The next day, the old yellow ox in our sheep pen died. It lay on the ground with black blood around its mouth. Seeing this, Grandma stomped her feet in a panic, cursing out loud.
Which wicked bastard poisoned our yellow ox?
Grandpa stepped forward and said to Grandma.
Old woman, stop yelling. The yellow ox came to me in a dream last night.
Grandpa went into the sheep pen, bent down, and gently stroked the old yellow ox.
This old yellow ox has reached the end of its lifespan. It wants to be reincarnated as a human in its next life, so it begged me to bury it under the willow tree in the back mountain and guard its grave for 3 days.
Grandma glanced at the old yellow ox on the ground and said,
Even though this old yellow ox is nothing but skin and bones, it still weighs 400 to 500 jinn. How are you going to get it to the back mountain?
Our village is surrounded by mountains, and the mountain roads are already hard to walk on. Carrying an ox up the mountain would be even harder. Grandpa said,
I'll go find a few young men to help carry it to the back mountain.
Grandma hesitated for a few seconds and whispered. Stop. Grandpa shook his head and said,
Impossible. No one knows we have gold.
After saying this, Grandpa went out to find some help. Grandma took out a piece of floral cloth from the storehouse and propped it up with some wood to shade the old yellow ox from the sun. By noon, a few young men arrived at our house. One of the young men said,
Uncle, it's such a pity to bury this old yellow ox. We might as well butcher it and sell the meat.
Grandpa smiled and said,
You can't eat an ox that died of disease.
The young man smiled and said,
What a shame.
The young men carried the old yellow ox out of the yard, with Grandpa following behind. After they left, only Grandma and I were left at home. After Grandma finished cooking, she asked me to deliver the food to Grandpa. Before Grandpa left, he said he wouldn't be coming back for 3 days. He was going to eat and sleep in the back mountain to guard the old yellow ox's grave. I took the food and headed toward the back mountain. As soon as I walked into the woods, I saw a Daoist priest standing in front of Grandpa. The two of them seemed to be arguing about something. Carrying the food, I walked up to Grandpa. After putting the food on the ground, I looked up at the Daoist priest. The Daoist priest happened to be looking at me too. After making eye contact, the Daoist priest looked away. Then he said to Grandpa,
This old yellow ox is about to become a spirit. You need to dig it out right now.
Grandpa frowned tightly, clearly not believing the Daoist priest's words. Seeing that Grandpa didn't say anything, the Daoist priest spoke again.
The back mountain is already heavy with yin energy, and it asks you to bury it under a willow tree. Willow trees attract yin energy. It's trying to borrow your life to become a spirit.
Grandpa's eyes widened, and he said,
This old yellow ox plowed the fields its whole life, working hard without complaint. How could it possibly harm me?
The Daoist priest narrowed his eyes and said,
Those reincarnated as beasts did terrible things in their past lives. They're wicked people reborn. Do you really expect a wicked person to turn good?
Seeing Grandpa hesitate, the Daoist priest added,
Fine. If you don't believe me, there's no point in saying more. Tonight, at the Z hour, take out the gold, the old yellow ox. Look at it under the moonlight. You'll know the old yellow ox tricked you. What it gave you are just stones.
Hearing this, Grandpa's voice began to stutter.
How? How do you know about the gold?
The Daoist priest waved the fly whisk in his hand, turned around, and quickly disappeared into the woods. Grandpa slumped to the ground. He glanced at the old yellow ox's grave and muttered to himself.
Old yellow ox, you mustn't harm me.
Grandpa sighed. The Daoist priest's words left him restless and uneasy. Grandpa looked at me and said,
Dongfu, tell your grandma what that old Daoist priest said. Tell her to take out the gold and check it tonight at the Z hour.
I nodded. After Grandpa finished eating, I packed up the things and headed down the mountain with the bamboo basket. As soon as I got home, I told Grandma everything the old Daoist priest had said. Grandma frowned deeply and asked me,
Where is that old Daoist priest?
I shook my head. I don't know. Grandma was still worried about Grandpa frowning. She said,
Dongfu, stay here and watch the house. Don't step out of the east room. I need to go to the back mountain. I'll be back in a bit.
With that, Grandma left, leaving me all alone at home. I was sitting on the earthen bed playing. Suddenly, I saw our courtyard door being pushed open. In walked an old Daoist priest. And this old Daoist priest was exactly the one I had seen at the back mountain. Seeing the old Daoist priest enter the yard, I hurriedly got off the earthen bed and ran out to the courtyard. The old Daoist priest saw me and asked with a chuckle,
Little kid, are the adults home?
Yes, they are. The old Daoist priest looked up, glanced around, and said,
Go call your adults out.
Seeing me stay silent, the old Daoist priest narrowed his eyes as if sizing me up. I instinctively took 2 steps back. The old Daoist priest suddenly bent down, leaned in close to my face, and said,
Little kid, I know the adults aren't.
Terrified, I quickly ran back to the east room and locked the door behind me. The old Daoist priest crept up to our window and said with a gloomy face,
I'm here to save people. Why are you running?
I hid behind the door, praying for the old Daoist priest to leave quickly. I don't know how long it took before Grandma finally came back, holding a blessing bag in her hand. Before I could even speak, Grandma asked first.
Did that old Daoist priest come to our house?
Yes. He even asked if you guys were home. I said yes, but he said he knew you weren't. Grandma acted like she didn't hear me and hung the blessing bag by the door. Grandma, how did you know the old Daoist priest came to our house?
I ran into your Uncle Liang on my way back from the back mountain, and he told me.
Grandma, I feel like that old Daoist priest isn't a good person.
What does a kid like you know? I heard from your Uncle Liang that this old Daoist priest is a master with some real skills.
I didn't believe for a second that this old Daoist priest was a master. The way he spoke and the way he looked at me were just too creepy. Grandma sat on the earthen bed, lost in thought. I guess she was worrying about the gold. When the Z hour arrived at night, Grandma moved the bedding aside and pried a brick out of the wall. She took out the gold hidden in the wall piece by piece. After unwrapping the red paper, she held the gold up to the moonlight to take a look. But the gold, which had been perfectly fine during the day, had now turned into stones. Grandma was furious. She threw the stone in her hand to the ground and picked up another piece to check under the moonlight. That was when she realized they were all stones. Not a single piece of gold was left.
That damn old yellow ox.
After saying that, Grandma got off the earthen bed. As she put on her clothes, she said,
Dongfu, hurry up and get dressed. Come with me to the back mountain.
I quickly got off the earthen bed and put on my clothes. Grandma also grabbed 2 shovels. She was going to dig up the old yellow ox's grave. I followed Grandma toward the back mountain. After what felt like ages, we arrived under the willow tree. We saw Grandpa still burning joss paper for the old yellow ox. Seeing this, Grandma kicked over the basin used for burning the joss paper. The paper money inside scattered all over the ground. An eerie gust of wind blew past, extinguishing the burning paper. Grandpa froze for a few seconds before saying anxiously,
What are you doing?
Grandma let out a cold snort.
Chen Lao-san, you've been tricked by this old yellow ox. The gold it gave our family is all made of stone. That Daoist priest was right. This old yellow ox is about to become a spirit.
Right as Grandma finished speaking, I heard a loud boom of thunder, and then it started pouring rain. Grandma grabbed her shovel, ready to dig up the grave. Seeing this, Grandpa stopped Grandma and said,
This old yellow ox plowed the fields its whole life. We can't just dig up its grave.
Grandma frowned and said,
Chen Lao-san, this old yellow ox wants you dead. Get out of the way.
Grandma pushed Grandpa aside, raised her shovel, and started digging. Grandpa quickly scrambled up from the ground, trying to stop Grandma. But right then, I saw the tombstone engraved with the 3 characters Huang Dasheng bleeding. The 3 characters Huang Dasheng were carved by Grandpa. It was the name he gave the old yellow ox. If this yellow ox wanted to be reincarnated as a human, it needed a human name. I hurriedly shouted to Grandpa and Grandma, Grandpa, Grandma, look, the tombstone is bleeding. Only then did Grandpa and Grandma stop. They leaned in close to the tombstone to take a careful look. There was now a crack right down the middle of the tombstone, and blood was seeping out of it. Grandma grabbed Grandpa's arm and said loudly,
Cursed. This thing is seriously cursed. Hurry down the mountain.
The rain was pouring harder now. Grandpa frowned, hesitating. Seeing his hesitation, Grandma urged him.
What are you waiting for? Let's go.
Grandma stopped digging and dragged Grandpa down the mountain at a trot. As soon as we got home and stepped inside, I noticed something was wrong. The stones on the earthen bed were gone, leaving only a pile of red paper. Grandma, the stones are gone. Grandma grumbled.
Just a bunch of broken stones. It was probably a trick played by that old yellow ox.
After saying that, she took out some clean clothes from the cabinet. Our clothes were completely soaked by the rain. After changing his clothes, Grandpa sat outside the door, smoking in silence. Grandma glanced at him and grumbled.
If you ask me, we should go to the back mountain tomorrow, dig up that old yellow ox, and maybe sell it for some money.
Grandpa frowned.
Don't dig it up yet. I just feel there's something fishy about all this.
What's so fishy? Dongfu and I both saw it. It was just a pile of stones.
Grandpa didn't say a word. He just kept his head down, silently smoking his pipe. After laying out the bedding, Grandma snapped.
Stop smoking and go to sleep.
With that, she turned off the lights in the room. Early the next morning, something happened in the village. Sun Liang had been scared out of his mind. Everyone in the village went to his house. Sun Liang was huddled in a corner, his eyes filled with terror, muttering something under his breath. The villagers asked Zhang Lan what had happened. Zhang Lan was Sun Liang's wife, a rather mean woman. Sitting on the edge of the earthen bed, she cried as she spoke.
It was raining last night, so Liangzi went to the back mountain, hoping to catch a couple of wild boar piglets in the rain. But he ran into the yellow ox spirit and was almost eaten by it.
As she said this, Zhang Lan pulled up Sun Liang's pant leg. It revealed a large bruise and 2 black bloody holes. His calf had clearly been bitten through. Hearing the words yellow ox spirit, the villagers' eyes widened. A young man asked,
Where did a yellow ox spirit come from?
Zhang Lan looked up at Grandpa and said,
Uncle, you buried that old yellow ox in the back mountain, didn't you? Right under the willow tree. That old yellow ox is out to kill.
As soon as she finished speaking, all the villagers turned to look at Grandpa. Unable to defend himself, Grandpa stayed silent.
This yellow ox has become a spirit. What should we do?
Zhang Lan wiped her tears and said,
There's a powerful Daoist priest from my hometown. He can definitely subdue the yellow ox spirit.
Then hurry up and invite him over. Yeah, get him here quick, before the yellow ox spirit hurts anyone else.
Zhang Lan held up 5 fingers.
It'll cost this much to get him here.
The villagers were all stunned. After all, no one was rich. They all turned to look at Grandpa again. Grandpa spoke up.
Our family will pay for it.
After saying that, Grandpa walked out of the yard. Seeing this, Grandma told me to follow him. Grandpa went to the spot where the old yellow ox was originally buried. To our surprise, it was now just an empty pit. The old yellow ox's grave had been dug up and the old yellow ox was gone, leaving only the cracked tombstone behind. Grandpa sighed. He picked up the tombstone, took a look, and muttered to himself,
Old yellow ox, is there something you're not telling us?
Grandpa still couldn't believe that the honest old yellow ox would actually hurt anyone. It was almost dark when Grandpa finally led me back down the mountain. Just as we reached the village entrance, we saw all the villagers gathered around. Grandpa and I squeezed through the crowd, only to see Sun Liang stripped of his clothes, his body covered in red runes. His hands were tied with a rope, and he was hanging from a tree branch. Standing next to Sun Liang was the exact same Taoist priest who had visited our house. Zhang Lan leaned in close to the Daoist priest and said tearfully,
Daoist Zhang, you have to save Liangzi's life.
Even though Zhang Lan was crying when she said this, there wasn't a single trace of worry in her eyes. Instead, she looked downright cunning. Daoist Zhang frowned deeply. After stabbing his copper coin sword into the glutinous rice, he picked up a bowl of rooster blood and used a blood-dipped finger to draw runes on the copper coin sword. Once the glutinous rice was completely dyed red, he pulled the copper coin sword back out. Immediately after, he began chanting a spell towards Sun Liang.
Animal realm, seal the cycle of reincarnation, break.
After finishing his chant, Daoist Zhang threw the bowl of glutinous rice straight onto Sun Liang's body. Sun Liang's whole body convulsed a few times, his eyes rolling back as if he were on the brink of death. Then, Daoist Zhang chanted the spell once more. The moment his voice faded, an eerie gust of wind blew past. Dark clouds rolled in and completely blocked out the moon, plunging the surroundings into pitch darkness, accompanied by the occasional cawing of crows. The villagers started to panic, hastily asking Daoist Zhang what was going on.
Don't be afraid. Don't panic. Don't run around. Just stay right where you are.
Surrounded by pitch darkness, I gripped Grandpa's hand tightly. Suddenly, a flash of lightning lit up the night sky. I saw a dark shadow standing right behind Sun Liang, and its silhouette looked just like a wolf standing on its hind legs. I tried to get a better look at the shadow, but the lightning vanished in an instant, plunging us back into darkness. Crunch, crunch. I could hear the sound of something eating. Then came another deafening boom of thunder and a flash of lightning, followed instantly by terrified screams erupting from the crowd. In the flash of lightning, I saw that Sun Liang's head was completely gone, leaving only his headless body dangling in mid-air.
Someone's been killed. Run!
Terrified, the villagers scattered and fled in all directions. Grandpa scooped me up and sprinted toward home, with Grandma running right beside him. Huddled in Grandpa's arms, I mustered up the courage to take one last glance back. I saw Zhang Lan just standing there, a smug look in her eyes, and she even licked her lips. That Daoist Zhang was even creepier. He just stared at Sun Liang's corpse, not showing a single ounce of fear. Once we got home, Grandma immediately locked all the doors and windows. With a look of sheer terror on her face, she said,
Old man, this yellow ox has turned into a spirit. It actually dared to hurt someone right in front of all those people. What are we going to do?
Grandpa furrowed his brows deeply and let out a heavy sigh.
Maybe I should go ask Blind Chen for help.
Blind Chen is a complete lunatic. What's the use of asking a madman for help?
Blind Chen lived at the west end of our village. He had fallen seriously ill when he was young, and ever since then he had been completely unhinged. None of the villagers wanted anything to do with him. Over time, he was left all alone at the west end of the village. Rumor had it that he had the ability to see yin and yang, but no one really knew if it was true or not. Grandpa said,
That Daoist priest is useless. The yellow ox dared to kill right in front of him. We'll just have to try our luck as a last resort.
Grandma sighed and didn't say another word. The next day, Sun Liang's corpse was still hanging at the village entrance. No one dared to take him down. Jianglan sat on the ground crying. She said,
Liangzi died a violent death, and as a woman, I don't know how to handle the burial. I'm begging the uncles and aunts of the village to help me.
Grandpa sighed and said,
Leaving his body hanging at the village entrance isn't right. Let's all help out and collect Liangzi's body.
After saying that, Grandpa stepped forward with a dagger and, together with a few elders, took Sun Liang's body down. Frowning, Grandpa said,
Bring a white cloth and get some dry wood ready. Someone who dies a violent death can't be buried. They must be burned.
As soon as Grandpa finished speaking, Jianglan said,
Uncle, don't burn him yet.
Grandpa froze for a few seconds and asked,
If we don't burn the body, what do you want to do?
Jianglan's eyes darted around for a moment before she replied,
In my hometown, there's a custom that a person must be left with a whole corpse after death. If not, they can't be reincarnated as a human and will only become a pig or a dog. I want to stitch a head onto Liangzi.
Stitch a head? Where are you going to get a head?
Jianglan wailed.
There's a corpse stitcher in my hometown, and he'll bring a head. Please, uncles and aunts, help me carry Liangzi back to my house.
This was the first time the villagers had ever heard of stitching a head, and they could hardly believe it. But seeing Jianglan begging so bitterly, they still helped carry Sun Liang's body back. It wasn't until dark that the corpse stitcher finally arrived. He was bundled up tightly from head to toe, revealing only a pair of eyes. I felt like I had seen those eyes somewhere before. Suddenly, it hit me. They looked like the eyes of that Daoist priest. The corpse stitcher was also carrying a wooden box on his back, and I guess the head was inside it. Seeing the corpse stitcher arrive, Jianglan stepped forward to greet him with a smile.
You're finally here.
The corpse stitcher didn't say a word. His eyes darted around as if he was sizing up the people in the courtyard. He followed Jianglan into the east room, where Sun Liang's body was laid out. The villagers all waited in the courtyard, just waiting for the corpse stitcher to sew the body up so they could burn Sun Liang. I don't know how much time passed before Jianglan came out of the east room, crying as she said,
It's stitched. I just need 6 people to come in.
A few young men volunteered and went into the east room. The lights in the east room were off, with only 2 white candles lit, making it very dark inside. From the outside, you couldn't see what was going on inside at all. All we knew was that after those 6 young men went in, a little while later, Jianglan came out of the east room again. She cried and said,
Liangzi doesn't seem to want to leave. 6 people can't lift him. Let's have 4 more people.
4 more young men stood up and went into the east room. Grandpa frowned and looked toward the east room. After another while, Jianglan came out of the east room again. I saw obvious bloodstains on her sleeves. Then she spoke up.
Uncles and aunts, Liangzi still doesn't want to leave. We need a few more people.
The villagers exchanged confused glances. Even if he didn't want to go, 10 people could easily lift him. This time, a few older men stood up. Just as they were about to head inside, Grandpa stood up.
Wait a minute.
Hearing this, Jianglan's gaze toward Grandpa suddenly turned vicious. She asked,
Uncle, what's wrong?
Grandpa's face hardened, and he shouted toward the east room.
Fuzi.
Fuzi was one of the young men who had just gone inside, but there was no response. Jianglan's expression turned ugly.
Uncle, stop shouting. You might startle Liangzi's soul.
Grandpa ignored Zhonglan and shouted toward the east room again.
Fuzi.
Still, no one answered. Grandpa furrowed his brows tightly and called out again.
Chunwang.
Chunwang was the name of another young man, but there was still no response. By now, all the villagers had stood up, their eyes fixed on the east room. Grandpa asked Zhonglan,
Where are they? Where are the people who just went in?
Zhonglan said with a fake smile.
How should I know?
As soon as she said that, she turned tail and tried to bolt for the east room.